The Supreme Court's rollback of Roe v. Wade represents the culmination of decades of anti-abortion advocacy from conservative groups across the country. I'm joined next by Julaine Appling, president of Wisconsin Family Action. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity.
I want to start with the lawsuit. So in the last segment, I spoke to Attorney General Josh Kaul about the lawsuit he and Evers has filed trying to overturn this 1849 state law. What's your perspective on this suit?
Well, I think the law is frivolous. I think it is I think it's an abdication of their rightful responsibility as Attorney General and Governor. I think that they are pandering to the people who are their political allies. When they did their press conference, who was there? People from Planned Parenthood. And I think that it's a waste of taxpayer money for them to not defend a duly enacted law. The fact that the law is 173 years old does not negate it. There's nothing that's been done by the legislature to undo that law. In fact, to the contrary, groups like ours have worked very hard to keep it in place. And in spite of the odds, we've done so.
You mentioned it's 173 years old, which shouldn't negate its enforceability. But there were other laws introduced in there's an 1849 ban on adultery. I mean, should we be enforcing that?
Well, in my opinion, yes. Probably we should, but that's unrealistic, and I realize the times have changed on that. The life of a baby has never changed. The fact that a woman has a baby, which is a unique human being within her body, okay? It's not just her body. That hasn't changed in 173 years. Nothing about that has changed. Cultural mores on something like adultery have changed. But notice we still have on the books. If somebody wanted to enforce it, they could. Now, I believe in this situation with Roe v. Wade appropriately overturned and the issue returns to the states, this is the time when you look at a law like we have from 1849 and you say, is it still applicable? It's applicable in every sense.
This law includes an exception for the life of the mother. As I understand it, Wisconsin Family Action doesn't agree with that exception and would like to see that repealed. Is that correct?
Well, we always start our position on bills and laws from a no exceptions position. Now, that doesn't mean we end up there, okay? But in this situation, the life of the mother is not defined at all. And as a result of it not being more narrowly defined, it can be twisted and contorted to allow for things that the law would not be intending to happen. So we think it needs to be more carefully defined, and really what we would prefer is that the law talks about equal care for the mother and baby in a medical emergency. That would be the best way.
When you say more narrowly defined, can you explain exactly what that means? Yeah,
there's some medical language that could be put in there that talks about it narrows the scope of what a medical emergency is, all right? A good example of that is the way we define medical emergency in the heartbeat bill law that was not law, but heartbeat bill that was introduced this session, I think back in February or so, and there's some good language in there.
Oftentimes when a mother's life needs to be saved, these are split second or these are gray area decisions for doctors anyway. This is not a black and white thing. If you talk to doctors, that's what they say. So, is this not advocating that the legislature is choosing whose life to save at the end of the day, the baby's over the mother's?
No, I disagree with the characterization there. I think that if the baby dies in the process of saving the mother, incidentally, as tragic as that is far different from intentionally killing the baby in the hopes of saving the mother. So that's a completely different scenario.
I want to talk further about potentially other types of legislation that Wisconsin Family Action would support. Looking back over, WFA's testimony in other hearings for other bills, it looks like last year, you testified against the expansion of birth control for pharmacists to prescribe it. You mentioned during that testimony that you don't promote birth control for unmarried people because you believe that they shouldn't have sex. Is there a law where are you looking to also see the legislature potentially continue to restrict the use of contraception?
No, that's not what we were about. That bill was about giving pharmacists, for the first time ever, prescription writing rights and authorities.
So my point in bringing that up was just to clarify whether there are additional plans to lobby for that type of legislation.
No.
Okay. Is there anything we've missed here that you think is important in terms of what you would like to see the legislature potentially act on in the next session in terms of additional restrictions or laws or anything impacting this issue?
Personally, we would like to see some kind of a very clear protection and definition in the Constitution that protects unborn Wisconsin citizens from the moment of conception on, that they have the same same measure of protection every other human being in Wisconsin has. And it's called a personhood amendment. I'm not sure exactly where that language would settle right now, but we've seen one introduced, and we've supported it every time that it has been introduced. So I would anticipate something like that coming up this session.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
All right. We will be right back.